We go over to the tank and find him on a quest to get his Pokemon. He sees a cave below and goes inside the mountain's butthole where the undead begins to swarm him. However, they are all easily defeated. The tank realizes that he can never catch up to Maple if he plays normally, so he must become something else to be useful. Our guild mate enters the boss room and sees an army of monsters waiting for him, so he charges at them while using life steal to stay alive. The drain tank makes it to the ship and faces off against the boss. They begin fighting, but our ally comes out on top, and for all his efforts the tank gains a chest filled with gold along with an armored Darkrai as his Pokemon. At the guild house, our teammates show off all the new pets they managed to subjugate along with the special effects they provide. The next day, Maple and Sally decide to take the day to hang out together, when the mage enters the room to ask Sally for another duel while showing off that she now has a Pokemon, and of course Sally always stands on business. They go outside to enter the fighting arena, then the battle begins with the mage trying to summon her pet, but the assassin activates the Speed Force and Shadow Clone Jutsu at the same time, before knocking up her rival into the air to use Omni Slash to send the defenseless woman in the direction of the Shadow Realm, and bringing this battle to an end. The mage complains that she didn't get to show off her Pokemon and decides to let them see it. Sally starts preparing herself for the undead Riz, however it turns out to be just an overweight Torchic instead, and she asks the assassin for a rematch with both of them using their pets this time, but the mage gets a message from her guild leader to hide all new abilities until after the event, so she leaves for now. Our duo decides to explore level 7 together, and the two women begin traveling throughout the world while having fun viewing all the beautiful sceneries and tormenting innocent animals along with squirting liquids all over each other. Sally loses Maple for a moment and finds that she has condemned a herd of sheep to a life of servitude before forcing the poor animals to carry them around until they get tired enough to stop for water. Our duo comes out of the ball of cloud, and the demon goes over to feast upon the sheep, but sensing that this monster will never let them live in peace, the herd decides to run while they still can to regain their freedom. Sally does a Spider-Man to pull Maple out of the lake before noticing that something inside the water is glowing, and the Great Syrup comes out to go into the pond where he returns with a white crystal. Our team gains a hidden quest to find 3 gems to unlock a door, and 100 IQ. Sally realizes that it was following the animals that triggered this mission, so they decide to look for more creatures that travel in groups to track. This leads the two women to a beach where Sally dives underwater to swim after a school of fish that goes into a cave covered in glowing rocks with a giant tablet in the center, which contains a map with the location of the other gems. They go to the tree fort where a giant chicken awakens to fight against our teammates. The boss takes to the sky, but the Great Syrup uses Vine Whip to restrain the monster while Sally goes up to unleash a devastating dagger rush alongside a solar beam from the God King. Maple takes the time to activate her strongest skills and charges at the boss to give the poor creature such a brutal combo that it can only be described as animal abuse before applying Hydra for maximum overkill. Sally sees a crystal in the distance, and our team successfully collects 2 out of 3 keys. They travel to the Archdragon's Peak where the wind threatens to blow them off. The boss reveals himself in the center of a cyclone and uses splintered storm shards to take Maple out of the fight, but Sally continues to head towards the Regirock and lands the first blow on it. The monster uses Rock Wrecker on the assassin, however it's suddenly cut in half because Maple is now using her laser cannon as a lightsaber to fight the boss. Sally takes this moment to close the distance on her opponent to get into range and dodges a lethal blow so she can do a team ultimate with Maple to bring this fight to an end. They get the last crystal needed to complete the quest and goes to a ruin in the forest where the gems opens a portal that transports them into a hidden area within the game. Sally's pet runs off, so they follow it throughout their new locations while seeing many interesting creatures that have never been encountered until our party arrives at a cave with a radioactive pool deep within. They place their pets into the water, which causes them to evolve into a more powerful form. Our team returns to the guild house to show them what happened to the pets, and Maple wonders if everyone could all evolve their Pokemon for the upcoming event, but our guildmates explain that they can't do that yet because their pet's level isn't high enough to trigger the hidden mission. The next day our guild sits at the table while the announcer explains that this event will be divided into 2 parts, with round 1 being a survival match where everyone will get points based on the amount of monsters they smoke, but only the person who last hits the monster will be awarded the points, so working together would be counterproductive. Our teammates gets transported to different locations and Maple summons the doggies to participate in her favorite activity. Her first victim appears, so she gives it a shocking surprise before going over to feed the monster to her shield. Then our demon begins a great slaughter upon any creature unfortunate enough to cross her path until they become wise enough to flee from her on sight, since she has no speed stats to chase them down with. Maple walks around the forest, then sees a plant station 6 on the ground and wisely decides to poke the mysterious mushroom. It begins releasing spores that draw all the monsters in the area to their location, and Maple calls upon Super Great God King Syrup to turn the battlefield into quicksand so she can have an easier time sending the defenseless animals to the afterlife. One of the twins is traveling through the forest when she encounters people from another group, so our guild member sends her Teddy Ursa to show them the light before making it unleash Fury Swipe to maul the poor bastard, while the rest of them wisely makes a tactical retreat. The other twin meets up with her sister, who shows that Maple is on the map being overwhelmed by an army of monsters, so they decide to go and help her out. Our damage dealers arrive at the forest but realize that Maple is enjoying making all these innocent creatures into hashtags, then decides to leave her alone. However, after a few hours of repeated genocide, Maple lets down her guard and gets deep-throated by a sneaky monster. We go over to the crafter and find her using her pet to buff all the traps before placing them all over the woodland. Then she sets off her boomers to give everyone present inside the jungle their own personal fireworks show. The tank faces off against 2 golems and equips his Digimon to use a fire fist to one-shot the giant rock monsters before giving the remaining animals an express ticket to the Shadow Realm. We head over to our mage to see him facing off against 2 members of the Rank 1 guild. He puts up a wall to block their vision, but they instantly turn it into sand as the bruiser uses Earthquake, which forces our mage to activate shadow clones to survive. The assassin uses his divine dog to attack all the copies at once, while he channels the Speed Force to give the mage a lethal backshot to end the fight. The Rank 1 guild continues their hunt while our mage hides behind a rock and thanks his pet for taking his place after he placed the rock wall. We enter a mysterious forest surrounded by mists and see a man get paralyzed before he's sliced to bits by our samurai. She then travels through the jungle while putting everything she needs on a t-shirt, regardless if they're a human or a monster. Sally hides behind a rock while spying on 2 of the most powerful guild masters on the server. They start a power beam struggle with them being evenly matched before calming upon their Pokemon to do battle alongside them. The Flame Empress decides to go all out and calls upon her Ho-Oh to activate Baryon mode, then uses a fireball on Faker to nuke the entire combat zone. The Rank 1 escape with little damage and gets ready to continue their fight when Maple suddenly appears from the forest after turning the monster that ate her into a worker without pay, so the 2 guild leaders decides to finish their fight on a later date. After the event, our teammates celebrate because all of them did well enough to be in the top ranks of the main event. The announcer tells them that in part 2 the people that are on the highest difficulty level will gain 5 medals for surviving while getting 1 medal for each monster slain. But unlike the previous event, everybody who participates in taking down a boss will gain a medal, so there is no point in fighting among each other, and it's revealed that in the night powerful waves will begin to spawn to annihilate anyone they find. Our guildmates get teleported to a vast wasteland and are immediately confronted by giant monsters. Maple bleaches her hair and calls upon Super Syrup to use Solar Beam on them, while the samurai summons her snake, who strangles the fugly bastard to take it down. Then the tank lands a lethal blow followed by the twins' hammer barrage to finish them off. Everyone begins to celebrate winning their first fight while the mage reveals that he has the best pet any man could ask for, leaving the women shocked by the implications, but luckily the transformation doesn't last long enough for any nefarious deeds to be done. They realize that those monsters didn't drop any medals and decides to split up their group into 2 parties to raid the boss dungeons more efficiently. Maple's party rides on the giant bears until they reach a location that is covered in quicksand, but no obstacle can stand in the way of Super Great God King Syrup. Our team gets teleported deep inside the island where they are met by an unwanted jump scare. However, our guild wants all the smoke. The twins begin smashing the creature from the underworld until it becomes a puddle on the ground, but Maple begins taking damage because our hammer-wielding duo is being attacked by the mud. Sally comes in clutch to free them, then they return to Super Great Syrup. Our team realizes that the more they fight the more the muck will multiply, but the twins reveals that the crafter made them new weapons before beginning to rain down hell on the poor bastard until it's banished to the underworld from whence it came, which also earns our team their very first medal. Team 2 rides on the giant white glizzy and heads far into the forest until they come upon a tree that transports them into the boss room. Our party is suddenly attacked from the shadows, forcing our mage to place a shield, but none of them can find the monsters because it's hiding. The crafter begins setting up traps all over the map and activates them to turn the room into a fiery hellscape. Then our mage uses a spell to create a sun in the sky to reveal the boss's location. At the same time, the samurai and tank use their team ultimate to bring this battle to an end to achieve their second medal. Our guild meets up back together at a dungeon that they hope to turn into their new base before nightfall. When all the powerful monsters come out to play, Maple thinks about the best ways to make any monster that enters suffer and decides to cover everything in poison before placing the crafter's trap for maximum overkill. She heads back to see the twins finishing up placing boomers, and they return to the crafter to find her building the best base that can possibly be made in this game. The monsters begin to attack our base and got to take a few steps before being blown into non-existence by an endless discharge of nukes while our guildmates are having fun playing a game of cards. In the morning, our party decides to exit their base to hunt more bosses, but finds that their map is disabled along with all their other communications, as a teleportation circle appears to scatter them across the map. We find Maple alone on the beach wondering where everyone could be, so she decides to do the very reasonable thing and flies high into the air with her mech form with some assistance from Super Great Syrup before kamikazing herself to create fireworks that can be seen by everyone. Our demon falls from the skies until she is caught by the leader of the Flame Guild, who wonders how the fork Maple came up with that idea. She reveals that the storm has been closing in on the map and deletes any players unfortunate enough to come in contact with it. But before leaving, the guild master decides to give Maple a fantasy air tag just in case the explosions in the sky isn't an adequate hint to her location. We go over to the tank and find him with the healer surrounded by a huge horde of monsters. They try their best to fight as hard as possible, but slowly the flying abominations begin to overwhelm them until a sun falls from the sky to eliminate their opponent. As the Flame Guild leader arrives on the battlefield, she tells him that Maple is busy trying to delete herself and offers to team up with him to find their other guildmates. Inside a boss dungeon, the trapper and crafter work together so they can survive being on their own. They enter the final room and start fighting against Azir, who uses a rise to summon sand soldiers, which easily get blown into oblivion. The trapper uses Flying Thunder God to swap places with his kunai, and they begin unleashing hell upon the boss until it ascends to the gates of heaven. Our duo successfully clears the dungeon, then encounters the Flame Guild leader waiting outside and shows off that they earned a medal for their troubles. The samurai and swordsmen are encircled by an endless swarm of average proportioned glizzies, but the stylish Pidgeotto uses gusts to blow all of them off in one go until the rare 6-incher exposes itself and gets a size reduction by our katana-loving teammate to bring this battle to an end. They see the Ho flying in the distance, and the swordsman surely earns 16 years in prison while attempting to get their attention. We find Sally slaying all the monsters foolish enough to cross her path until a fireball comes in to defeat her opponent. The mage reveals herself and begins helping our assassin to finish off all the remaining creatures that are alive around them. She tells Sally that they should work together because with her detection skill, finding their teammates will be super easy, barely even an inconvenience. The rest of our guild members struggle to hold off an army of flying imps to protect the twins, since without Maple one attack can end them. Sally and her rival come in from the forest and they see that all the monsters are suddenly defeated as the rank 1 and his assassin joins them as well. The mage reveals that their base have been swallowed by the storm and 100 IQ Sally sees an opportunity, then comes up with a plan. She takes everyone to Maple to ask her if they can invite the guilds to use their base so all of them can work together to slaughter any creature that comes too close to them, and of course our guild leader loves this idea. Everyone starts to travel to the dungeon, then they cooperate with all their skills to make it the most fortified stronghold the server has ever seen. All the preparations have been made just as night begins to fall. The monster starts entering their base, but the traps have little effect on them, so 2 of the guild masters decides to go outside to take them on. They both enter their awakening forms and launch a team ultimate to fork everything that exists in that direction, but the destructive duo also wiped out all the traps that were placed as well. Our party decides that it wouldn't be wise to spend all day fixing everything that was destroyed, but instead they will divide themselves into 4 groups who will go out to defeat bosses while the fodders can stay behind to protect the base. The twins' party heads off to clear one of the dungeons while wiping out any monster that chooses to enter their path until they arrive at the location and gets teleported deep within the lake. The trapper makes the entire party undetectable, then they find an ocean of vicious monsters separating them from their goal, but the assassin comes in clutch by using Chimera Shadow Gardens to bypass all the creatures without needing to fight them. Our party continues to the boss room and goes inside to find a very special Whiskash. The assassin goes in along with his divine dogs to use air slash to get the unholy creature's attention, while the twins try to give the poor bastard all the chromosomes that it didn't receive at birth, until the boss finally falls to the ground and gets smashed by our guildmates. The atypical Whiskash gets up from its beating to use Thunderbolt on the twins, but the trapper quickly creates a massive fortress to defend his teammates from harm. The assassin channels the Speed Force as he hides in his shadow to get close enough to land a devastating blow on the boss to end this hard-fought battle, and they all receive a medal for completing this quest. The rank 1's party flies through the sky until they see a floating landmass. Our party lands on the island and discovers a mansion hidden within the forest, so they open the door and are immediately teleported to the boss room. Everyone enters the final area and is confronted by a boss that endlessly summons monsters to fight them. Our magic knight begins the battle by launching spells at the boss, but it duplicates itself to launch a massive attack, forcing him to go on the defensive. The healer starts buffing her teammates, then the rank 1 goes on his Lugia, leaving the rest of his party to keep the boss distracted so he can charge his ultimate attack to wipe out all the monsters in one move, and they gain a medal for completing their task. We find our samurai's team walking through a sandstorm until they encounter a labyrinth made of stone. Everyone walks through the dungeon and finds another desert waiting at the end with a lot of unwanted surprises hiding inside, so all of our teammates use their most powerful attacks to take down everything that breathes around them, but the bosses enter phase 2 and prepare to continue the fight. The tank equips his Pokemon to his shield and uses Taunt on both of the monsters, while the rest of our party uses their team ultimate to take down one of the bosses, with the other joining it in the afterlife shortly after, earning them a medal for winning this fight. We go over to Maple's group to find her committing a great genocide on all the creatures she can find, but Sally sees a portal spawning the creatures, so Maple decides that they'll fly into it. Our party grabs onto Maple while assuming the good girl position, then Sally wraps them on tight before riding shotgun, so when Maple launches her mech she doesn't get a free facelift as they enter the void in space. She disables her robot and our party sees an egg in the distance that hatches as the boss arrives on the battlefield. The monster starts approaching them, so the mage puts up as many barriers as she can manage, but it still breaks through with one hit, forcing them to dodge its follow-up attack. Maple assumes her true form to duel the boss while her teammates attack it from range to deal catastrophic blows to its life points. Our demon manages to disarm the boss, but it counters with a lethal laser beam which Maple repays by burning the poor bastard alive. However, it isn't enough and she reverts to her human form. Before the boss tests if she has a foot fetish, Maple explodes to free herself, then it's revealed that she remains undamaged, as Super Great Syrup comes out to fight with her while the mage buffs the entire party. Sally charges at the monster and lands a devastating backshot on it, leaving both the guild master and Maple to use their 3-bar abilities to unleash the sun on the boss to end its subscription to life. Our base is surrounded by many monsters and the defenders inside decides that they must do their part to support their newfound alliance. Our noble party ventures outside to slay their foe but gets swiftly reminded that they're not main characters. Everyone returns to the base to share all the information that they were able to find out. Nighttime falls and a horde of the strongest bosses begins to appear around the world, and our teammates realize that their base is not strong enough to handle these monsters, so our party decides that they must fight them off in order to head outside to gain more flexibility in their movements. Everyone makes it to the entrance safely, then takes to the skies to avoid losing any of their team members. They decide to make a mountain top their new base and consider it their last stand to survive against the final wave of night monsters. Our party begins working together to fortify the area with their abilities, when beams of light begin erupting from the ground as the ultimate boss is conjured into this world. Everyone realizes that they're pretty much forked, but Cthulhu chooses to make this clear by using planetary devastation on the world, but Maple comes in clutch to block the meteors and saves everyone from a game over. Our alliance makes a plan to complete this quest and splits up into groups to deal with the mobs of monsters, while Maple's guild will try to keep Hentai Face busy. They confront the final boss riding Super Great God King Syrup, then lands on the ground to hide from the abomination. Maple transforms into her true form and Sally alongside our mage uses multi-shadow clone jutsu to duplicate the demon, then she rushes in the direction of Cthulhu to jump on the monster so they can do as much damage as possible. The twins start to smash Hentai Face with their bears, but the boss feels the pain and tries to laser them. However, the tank is on point to block all of its attacks. Cthulhu is brought to its knees as the rest of our party enters the fight to attack its life points directly to slowly deliver it to the afterlife. The boss enters phase 2 and starts firing lasers from all the holes in his body, which forces Maple to cosplay as a human. Then it uses Draco Meteor on our party, but the mage comes in clutch to save them from certain demise. Cthulhu begins to take to the skies and runs away from our guild members to heal. However, Maple allows no creature to escape her grasp, so she fires the mech cannon at the boss's wings to introduce the poor bastard to the floor. Cthulhu charges a hyper beam at our duo, which Maple manages to block, but at the cost of her mech form. The boss uses Mateo to bring down the sky on them, and luckily the other guild leaders saved our party just in time. Every member of our alliance starts using their strongest skills to gangbang the monster with anything they can think of to send it to the Shadow Realm, but even after taking all this damage, Cthulhu somehow still remains standing. The 3 guild masters face off against the boss, and Maple goes up into the sky before jumping off Super Great Syrup, who uses a solar beam to give her a boost. Then she deeps throat the boss so hard that it ends in a backshot, which finally defeats Hentai Face to bring this event to an end. Everyone begins celebrating because they survived the quest, and all of them gain medals that can be used to trade for skills. Our duo then takes some time to themselves to travel through all the floors to see all that they have accomplished while looking forward to the future adventures that is to come in this game.
Like for a cat girl, subscribe for a waifu, and remember to stay swifty.